The rain hammered against the windshield as Deanna Kellerman's Honda Civic sputtered and died on the side of Highway 17, her headlights flickering once before plunging her into darkness. She gripped the steering wheel and let out a long breath, refusing to scream even though every fiber of her being wanted to. This was not how tonight was supposed to go. The hospital shifts had been brutal lately, and all she wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and sleep for 12 hours straight. Instead, she was stranded on a dark highway at 11:30 at night with a dead phone charger and a car that had apparently decided it had had enough. Deanna grabbed her phone, seeing the battery at 3%, and quickly dialed her brother. It went straight to voicemail. Of course it did. Marcus was probably gaming with his headphones on, completely oblivious to the outside world. She tried her best friend Sarah next, but after 4 rings it also went to voicemail. The battery icon flashed red at her. 2%. Come on, she muttered, scrolling through her contacts desperately. Her thumb hovered over her ex-boyfriend's name for half a second before she recoiled. No. Absolutely not. She would rather sleep in her car than give Trevor the satisfaction of playing rescuer after the way he had dismissed her career as just nursing, and suggested she find something more feminine and less stressful like teaching yoga. The phone died in her hand. Deanna dropped her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. She was a trauma nurse. She had stitched up knife wounds, talked down aggressive patients high on God knows what, and once helped deliver twins in an elevator during a power outage. She could handle a broken-down car and a dead phone. She just needed a plan. The knock on her window made her jump so hard she hit her knee on the steering wheel. A man stood outside in the pouring rain, holding what looked like an expensive leather jacket over his head in a futile attempt to stay dry. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and backlit by the headlights of a sleek black car parked behind hers. Deanna's first instinct was caution, her hand moving to the door lock, but then he stepped closer, and she could see his face more clearly. He looked about her age, maybe early 30s, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and genuinely concerned eyes. He made a rolling motion with his hand, asking her to lower the window. Deanna cracked it an inch. "I'm fine, thanks." "Your car's dead," he said, rain dripping down his face. He had to raise his voice over the storm. "And you're on a dangerous stretch of road. Let me help." "I said I'm fine. I've called for help." The lie came easily. Pride had always been both her greatest strength and her most frustrating weakness. He glanced at the dark phone in her hand, then back at her face. "Your phone's dead too. It's charging." Another lie. Deanna had no idea why she was being so stubborn. Maybe because she had spent the last 3 years rebuilding herself after Trevor, proving to herself and everyone else that she didn't need anyone to save her. She had put herself through nursing school while working 2 jobs. She had found her own apartment. She had learned to change her own oil and fix her own leaky faucet and assemble furniture without instructions out of sheer spite. The man sighed, and she could see him trying to figure out what to say. "Look, I get it. Strange guy, dark highway, horror movie vibes. But I'm not going anywhere until I know you're safe. So you can either let me help you, or we can both stand out here in the rain being stubborn." "I'm sitting in my car, actually." He laughed, a genuine surprised sound that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. "Fair point. I'm the only one being stubborn in the rain, apparently." Despite herself, Deanna felt her mouth twitch into an almost smile. She studied him more carefully. He wore what had probably been a crisp white button-down shirt before the rain had soaked it through, and dark slacks that looked expensive. His shoes were leather, definitely ruined now. He didn't look like someone who meant her harm. He looked like someone who had been on his way home from dinner or a business meeting and had actually stopped to help. I don't need a hero, she finally said, but her voice was softer now. I'm perfectly capable of handling this myself. I'm sure you are, he replied, water streaming down his face. But everyone needs help sometimes. It's not a character flaw. Those words hit something in Diana's chest, some wall she had built up brick by brick. She thought about her dead phone, her absent brother, her car that wouldn't start. She thought about the fact that it was nearly midnight and the temperature was dropping. She thought about her pride versus her common sense. Common sense won, but barely. Fine, she said, unlocking the door. But just so we're clear, this doesn't mean I needed rescuing. This is me accepting assistance as a practical decision. Noted, he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice even as she grabbed her purse and jacket and stepped out into the downpour. The rain was somehow even worse than it had looked from inside the car. Within seconds, Diana was drenched, her scrubs clinging to her skin and her hair hanging in wet ropes around her face. The man gestured toward his car, and they both ran for it, splashing through puddles that had formed on the shoulder of the highway. He opened the passenger door for her, which would have annoyed her if she weren't so cold and wet, and she slid into the most comfortable car seat she had ever experienced. The interior was all leather and expensive smelling, with a dashboard that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. She was dripping all over everything. He climbed into the driver's seat, equally soaked, and immediately turned up the heat. I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Crawford. Diana Kellerman. She hugged her jacket around herself, already feeling warmth seeping back into her limbs. And thank you. Even though I didn't need rescuing. Right, not rescuing, just practical assistance. His mouth quirked up at the corner as he pulled out his phone. Do you have roadside assistance? A mechanic you trust? Diana shook her head. I usually take it to the shop on 5th Street, but I don't have the number memorized and my phone's dead. No problem. Ethan tapped on his phone, then put it on speaker. Someone answered on the second ring. Hey, Marcus. Sorry for the late call. I need a tow truck on Highway 17, about 2 miles past the Route 9 exit. A Honda Civic, looks like electrical issues. He glanced at Diana. Where do you want it towed? My apartment complex. I can deal with it tomorrow. She rattled off her address, trying not to feel awkward about him hearing where she lived. Ethan repeated the information, then added, and make sure it's somewhere secure. I'll cover the charges, just put it on my account. Wait, no, Diana interrupted. I can pay for my own tow. He held up a hand while finishing the call, then hung up and looked at her. Consider it part of the practical assistance package. The truck will be there in 20 minutes. Now let me drive you home. You've done enough. I can wait with my car until the truck arrives. In the rain. When we're both already soaked and there's a perfectly warm car right here. Ethan shook his head. Diana, I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm trying to be a decent human being. Let me drive you home. She wanted to argue more, but the truth was she was exhausted. The 12-hour shift had drained every ounce of energy from her body, and the idea of waiting in the cold for a tow truck made her want to cry. So she nodded just once and settled back into the seat. Thank you, she said quietly. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the rain drumming against the roof and the windshield wipers working overtime. Diana watched the dark scenery slide past and tried to figure out what it was about this man that had made her accept help when she usually would rather crawl over broken glass than admit she needed anything from anyone. Long day? Ethan asked, breaking the silence. Diana glanced down at her scrubs, remembering that she looked like a drowned rat who also happened to work in healthcare. Is it that obvious? I recognized the look. That particular brand of exhaustion that comes from dealing with people's problems all day. He kept his eyes on the road, hands relaxed on the steering wheel. What do you do? I'm a trauma nurse at County General. She waited for the usual response, the one where people said, "Oh, that must be so hard," in a tone that really meant, "Thank God I don't have to do that." But Ethan just nodded. That takes a special kind of strength. I have a lot of respect for people who do that work. Diana found herself studying his profile in the dim light from the dashboard. He had a strong jaw, straight nose, and the kind of calm confidence that suggested he was used to handling difficult situations. "What do you do?" "I work in manufacturing," he said, which was technically true but also the vaguest answer possible. "Lots of logistics, management, that sort of thing." "Hence the late night and business clothes, something like that." He smiled slightly. "Though I think we're both equally styled by the rain at this point." Deanna laughed, actually laughed, and it felt good. "I definitely look like I lost a fight with a car wash." "You look like someone who's had a tough day and could use a break," Ethan said simply. "Nothing wrong with that." Something about his tone made Diana's chest feel tight. She looked away, focusing on the street signs. They were getting close to her apartment complex now, a modest building in a decent neighborhood that she had chosen because it was affordable and only 15 minutes from the hospital. "Take the next left," she directed. "Then it's the third building on the right." Ethan followed her instructions and pulled into the parking lot, finding a spot near the entrance. He put the car in park but didn't move to get out, and neither did Deanna. The rain had softened to a steady drizzle, and sitting in the warm car felt like existing in a bubble separate from the rest of the world. "Thank you," Deanna said again. "Really. I know I was being difficult about accepting help." "You were being independent," Ethan corrected. "There's a difference, though I am curious why you're so determined not to need anyone." Diana considered deflecting, but something about the darkness and the rain and the fact that she would probably never see this man again made her honest. "My ex-boyfriend used to act like I was helpless. Like I couldn't handle my job or my life without him swooping in to manage everything for me. When we broke up, I promised myself I'd never be that person, never be someone who needed rescuing." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, there's a difference between needing someone and accepting help when it's offered. Being strong doesn't mean doing everything alone. It means knowing when to let people in." Deanna turned to look at him, really look at him, and found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "That's surprisingly wise for a stranger who picked me up on the side of the road. I have my moments." He reached into the center console and pulled out a business card, offering it to her. "In case you need anything else, or if your car turns out to be more serious than expected." Deanna took the card, glancing down at it in the dim light. It was simple, expensive-looking cardstock with a name, phone number, and email address. No company name, which struck her as odd. Just Ethan Crawford, no title. "I find titles get in the way of actual conversations." He smiled. "But seriously, if you need anything, call me. Even if it's just to tell me your car is fixed and you're managing perfectly well on your own." Despite herself, Deanna smiled back. "I might do that, just to prove a point. I'd expect nothing less." She tucked the card into her purse and reached for the door handle. "Good night, Ethan. And thank you, even though I didn't need rescuing." "Good night, Deanna, even though I wasn't rescuing you." Deanna stepped out into the drizzle and hurried to her building's entrance, punching in the code with wrinkled fingers. She turned back once to wave, and saw Ethan still sitting in his car, waiting to make sure she got inside safely. Something about that made her heart do a strange little flip. She pushed through the door and climbed the stairs to her second-floor apartment, leaving wet footprints the whole way. By the time she got inside, stripped off her soaked clothes and stood under the hot shower spray, she was thinking about Ethan Crawford and his calm voice, and the way he had managed to help her without making her feel weak. The business card sat on her bathroom counter, getting slightly steamed from the shower. Deanna told herself she wouldn't call. She didn't need to. Her car would be fine, she would get it fixed, and she would go back to her perfectly independent life. But she kept the card anyway. The next morning, Deanna woke to her phone ringing. She had plugged it in the moment she got home, and now it was fully charged and vibrating angrily on her nightstand. She grabbed it without looking at the caller ID. "Hello, Deanna, it's Marcus. I just saw I missed like 5 calls from you last night. Are you okay?" Deanna sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes. Sunlight streamed through her bedroom window and she could hear birds chirping outside. The storm had passed completely. "I'm fine. My car broke down, but I got home okay." "What? Why didn't you call me back? I would have come to get you." "I tried calling you first, but you didn't answer, and my phone died." Marcus groaned. "I'm sorry, Di. I was playing that new game with my headset on. I didn't hear anything. How did you get home?" Deanna hesitated, then decided there was no point in lying. "Some guy stopped and helped me. He gave me a ride while my car got towed." "Some random guy?" Marcus's voice shot up. "Deanna, that's so dangerous. You can't just get in cars with strangers." "I'm aware of that, thank you. I'm a grown woman who can assess risk." He was perfectly nice and professional. She didn't mention the business card or the fact that she hadn't been able to stop thinking about Ethan's words about strength and letting people in. "Still, next time, call me first. Even if I don't answer right away, leave a voicemail. I'll always come get you, you know that." Deanna felt her irritation soften. Marcus was 27, 3 years younger than her, but he had always been protective. Probably because they had grown up with just each other and their mom after their dad left. They had learned early to look out for one another. "I know. Thanks, Marcus. You need me to drive you to work, or help with the car situation?" "No, I've got it covered. The tow truck took it to my apartment complex. I'll call the mechanic today." They chatted for a few more minutes before hanging up, and Deanna forced herself out of bed. She had the next 2 days off, which meant she could deal with her car and catch up on all the life maintenance she had been neglecting. Laundry, groceries, actually cooking real food instead of surviving on granola bars and coffee. She made herself breakfast and was halfway through her eggs when her phone rang again. Unknown number. Deanna answered cautiously. "Is this Diana Kellerman?" A woman's voice, professional and polite. "Yes. This is Jessica from Crawford Automotive Services. I'm calling about your Honda Civic that was towed in last night. We've completed a full diagnostic, and I wanted to go over the results with you." Deanna frowned. "Already? I haven't even called to set up an appointment yet. Mr. Crawford requested that we prioritize your vehicle. We had our team come in early this morning to take a look, Mr. Crawford." "Ethan." Diana felt a confusing mix of gratitude and annoyance. "He didn't need to do that." "He was quite insistent," Jessica said diplomatically. "So the good news is that your alternator failed, which is why your car died. The battery is also old and needs replacing. The bad news is that you also have an issue with your starter and some corroded wiring that should be addressed." Diana's heart sank. She knew enough about cars to know that this was going to be expensive. "How much are we talking?" Jessica named a figure that made Deanna want to cry. It was doable, technically. She had savings, but it would wipe out most of her emergency fund, which she had worked so hard to build up. "However," Jessica continued, "Mr. Crawford has instructed us to bill everything to his account. Your total will be 0. "What? No, absolutely not." Deanna stood up, pacing her small kitchen. "I can pay for my own repairs." "I understand, Miss Kellerman, but Mr. Crawford was very clear about his wishes. He said you would likely object, and he asked me to tell you that this is part of the practical assistance package. Jessica's voice held a hint of amusement. His words, not mine. Deanna felt her face flush. Ethan had anticipated her reaction perfectly, and somehow managed to help her again without even being present. It was infuriating and touching at the same time. When will it be ready? We can have it finished by tomorrow afternoon. We'll deliver it to your address when it's done. Deliver it. That's not necessary. It's included in our service, Jessica said smoothly, which Deanna suspected was not the whole truth. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Diana wanted to argue more, but she could tell it would be pointless. No, thank you. After hanging up, she stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she dug through her purse until she found Ethan's business card. She should call him right now and tell him that while she appreciated the help, she couldn't accept him paying for her car repairs. That was too much. That crossed a line from helpful stranger into something else entirely. But her thumb hovered over his number without dialing. The truth was, the money would have hurt. Not devastatingly, but enough to set her back and make the next few months tighter than comfortable. The truth was, Ethan had known that and found a way to help without making her feel like a charity case. The truth was, she liked him, even though they had only spent 20 minutes together in a rain-soaked car. Diana put the phone down. She would pay him back. She would figure out how much the repairs cost and insist on reimbursing him. But for now, she would let herself accept the help. That evening, Diana was folding laundry in front of the television when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Ethan. Just checking that you heard from the auto shop and everything is being taken care of. Diana stared at the message. She should be annoyed that he had somehow gotten her number. Except, the tow truck paperwork had probably required it, so he would have had access to that information. She saved his contact and typed back, I heard from them. You didn't need to pay for my repairs. His response came quickly. I know I didn't need to, I wanted to. That's too much money to spend on a stranger. Good thing we're not strangers anymore. Deanna found herself smiling at her phone like a teenager. She tried again. Ethan, seriously, let me pay you back. Tell you what, have dinner with me instead. Her smile faltered. Was he asking her on a date, or was this just a friendly thank you dinner? And why did her heart suddenly feel like it was beating too fast? Is this your way of collecting payment? She typed, going for humor to cover her uncertainty. This is my way of saying I'd like to see you again. No obligations. Just two people sharing a meal and maybe getting to know each other better. Diana bit her lip. She had sworn off dating after Trevor. She had told herself she needed to focus on her career and her independence. She had meant it, but Ethan wasn't Trevor. Okay, she typed before she could overthink it. But I'm paying for my own meal. Non-negotiable. Deal. They made plans for Saturday night, which gave Deanna 2 full days to panic about her decision. She tried on 6 different outfits, called Sarah for advice, and changed her mind about going at least 3 times. But when Saturday arrived and she met Ethan at a small Italian restaurant downtown, all her anxiety melted away. He stood when she approached the table, wearing dark jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look even warmer. He smiled at her like she was the best thing he had seen all day. You look beautiful, he said, pulling out her chair. Deanna had chosen a simple green dress and actually spent time on her hair and makeup. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. Better than rain-soaked business wear anyway. They fell into conversation easily, the kind of natural flow that made the hours disappear. Ethan asked about her work, and actually listened when she talked about the challenges of trauma nursing and the moments that made it all worthwhile. She told him about the patient who had brought her homemade cookies after recovering from a car accident, and the elderly woman who had held her hand during a particularly difficult night shift. "You really love what you do," Ethan observed, watching her face light up as she talked. "I do. Even on the hard days, there's something about being there for people in their worst moments, about making a difference like that." Deanna paused. "Does that sound corny?" "Not even a little." Deanna realized she had been doing most of the talking. "What about you? Tell me about the manufacturing business." Ethan's expression shifted just slightly. "It's complicated. Family business, lots of moving parts. I spend most of my time dealing with logistics and trying to keep everything running smoothly." "That's still pretty vague," Deanna teased. "What do you manufacture?" "Industrial equipment, mostly. Nothing very exciting." He shifted the subject smoothly. "Do you have family in the area?" Deanna recognized the deflection but let it go. "My brother Marcus lives about 15 minutes away. My mom's in Florida, living her best retired life." "My dad's not in the picture, I'm sorry." "Don't be. He left when I was 10, we're better off without him." Deanna took a sip of her wine. "What about you?" "My parents passed away a few years ago. Car accident." Ethan's voice was steady, but Deanna could see the pain in his eyes. "It was sudden. They were on their way home from a dinner party, and a drunk driver crossed the median." Deanna reached across the table and touched his hand without thinking. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. That's awful." He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. "It was the hardest thing I've ever been through, but it taught me not to take anything for granted, to appreciate the people in your life while you have them." They sat like that for a moment, hands clasped across the table, and Deanna felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just attraction or interest. This was connection, real and raw and honest. The server appeared to take their dessert order, and they reluctantly pulled their hands apart. But the warmth of Ethan's touch stayed with Deanna through the rest of the meal, through the light-hearted debate about whether tiramisu or cannoli was superior, through the argument over the check that Deanna won by literally handing the server her card before Ethan could protest. "I told you I was paying for my own meal," she said triumphantly. "Fair enough, but I'm walking you to your car." "What if I took a rideshare?" "Then I'm walking you to your rideshare." Deanna had actually driven, since her Honda was now running better than it had in months thanks to all the repairs. They walked out into the cool evening air, and she felt Ethan's hand brush against hers. She grabbed it without overthinking, and he squeezed gently. "I had a really nice time tonight," she said when they reached her car. "So did I." Ethan leaned against the Honda, still holding her hand. "Can I see you again? Are you going to pay for more of my stuff without asking?" "Probably. I'm very stubborn." "So am I, in case you hadn't noticed." "Oh, I noticed," he smiled. "But I like that about you. You don't need anyone to take care of you. You're completely capable on your own. That doesn't mean I won't want to do things for you anyway." Deanna felt her breath catch. That's really unfair, saying perfect things like that. "Is it working? Maybe." Ethan reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingertips grazing her cheek. "Can I kiss you?" Deanna answered by leaning in, closing the distance between them. His lips were soft and warm, and he kissed her like she was precious, like she mattered. Her hands found their way to his chest, feeling his heart beat strong and steady beneath her palms. When they finally pulled apart, Deanna felt dizzy. "Wow," she whispered. "Yeah," Ethan agreed, his voice rough. "Wow." They stood there in the parking lot, grinning at each other like idiots until Deanna finally forced herself to step back. "I should go. I have an early shift tomorrow." "Be safe. Text me when you get home." "That's very protective of you." "Is it too much?" Deanna considered. With Trevor, that kind of request would have felt suffocating, like he was checking up on her. but from Ethan it just felt like genuine care. "No, it's sweet. I'll text you." She did text him, and they fell into a pattern of constant communication. Good morning messages, random thoughts throughout the day, good night texts that turned into hour-long conversations. They saw each other whenever Diana's chaotic schedule allowed, grabbing coffee before her shifts or meeting for late dinners afterward. Marcus noticed the change immediately. "You're glowing," he said one afternoon when Diana stopped by his apartment. "Who is he? I'm not glowing." "Di, you've checked your phone like 6 times in the last 10 minutes. You're definitely seeing someone." Diana tried not to smile and failed. "His name is Ethan. I met him a few weeks ago." "The random guy from the highway." Marcus looked alarmed. "You're dating him." "He's not random anymore. He's actually amazing." Diana found herself telling Marcus everything about the dinners and the conversations and the way Ethan made her feel seen and valued without making her feel weak. "He sounds too good to be true," Marcus said cautiously. "What's the catch?" "There's no catch. He's just a really good guy." But even as she said it, Diana knew there was something. Ethan was still vague about his work, always deflecting when she asked specific questions. He had nice things, wore expensive clothes, drove that sleek car. But he never talked about money or status or any of the things she had learned to associate with wealthy people. It came to a head 3 months into their relationship. Diana was getting ready at Ethan's apartment, which she had only recently started staying at. It was beautiful, spacious, modern, in one of the nicest buildings downtown. She had made a joke the first time she saw it about manufacturing being more lucrative than she thought, and Ethan had changed the subject. Now, she was looking for a phone charger and accidentally opened his office door. The room was lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large desk with 3 computer monitors. But what caught her attention was the framed magazine cover on the wall. Forbes, from about 6 months ago. The headline read, "Crawford Manufacturing, the young CEO revolutionizing American industry." And there was Ethan, looking confident and professional in a tailored suit, staring back at her from the page. Diana's hand went to her mouth. She stepped closer, reading the subheadline. At 32, Ethan Crawford has transformed his family's struggling manufacturing company into a billion-dollar enterprise. Billion. With a B. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Ethan standing in the doorway, his expression somewhere between guilty and resigned. "I can explain," he said. "You're a billionaire." Diana's voice came out flat. "An actual billionaire, and you told me you work in manufacturing." "I do work in manufacturing." "You own the company. That's a pretty significant detail to leave out." Ethan stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. "I know, and I'm sorry I wasn't more upfront, but Diana, you have to understand. When you meet people and they know you have money, everything changes. They treat you differently. They want something from you." "I never wanted anything from you." "Exactly. That's why I didn't tell you." Ethan moved closer but didn't try to touch her. "When we met on that highway, you looked at me like I was just a person, not a bank account or a business opportunity. Just Ethan. I liked that. I needed that." Diana felt her anger warring with understanding. She thought about all the times Ethan had insisted on paying for things, the expensive gifts she had refused to accept, the way he had seemed genuinely delighted when she fought him on it. "The car repairs. That wasn't a big deal for you at all, was it? The money wasn't a big deal, but helping you was." Ethan's voice was earnest. "Diana, I know you don't need someone to take care of you. You've made that very clear, and I love that about you. But letting me help you, letting me be part of your life, that meant everything to me. You should have told me." Diana felt tears prickling her eyes. "We've been together for 3 months. You've met my brother. I've told you everything about my life, and you kept this huge secret. You're right. I should have told you sooner. I was scared. Ethan finally closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. I was scared that once you knew, you'd look at me differently, that I'd become Ethan the billionaire instead of just Ethan. Or worse, that you'd push me away because you'd think I was trying to use money to control you or change you. Deanna looked down at their joined hands. I told you about Trevor, about how he made me feel incapable and small. Do you understand why this feels like a lie? It wasn't a lie. I just didn't tell you everything. Ethan squeezed her hands gently. But you're right that it wasn't fair to you. I'm sorry, Deanna. I'm really sorry. She pulled her hands away and walked to the window, looking out over the city lights. Her mind was racing. Everything about their relationship suddenly looked different. The expensive restaurants she had insisted on splitting. The gifts she had refused. The careful way Ethan always seemed to downplay his lifestyle. The magazine, she said quietly. It says you took over the company after your parents died. Yeah, it was struggling. My father had made some bad decisions, trusted the wrong people. I spent the first year just trying to keep it from going under. Then I started making changes, modernizing, expanding into new markets. Ethan came to stand beside her at the window. It consumed my life for 3 years. Work was all I had. And then my car happened to be behind yours on a rainy highway, and you looked at me like I was just a guy who could maybe give you a ride home. Deanna felt her anger softening despite herself. You're really good at saying the right things. I'm really good at telling the truth, even when I should have told it sooner. They stood in silence for a moment, both staring out at the glittering city. Deanna tried to imagine Ethan's life, the pressure of running a billion-dollar company, the constant attention and demands. She thought about how he always seemed to relax around her, like he could finally stop performing. I don't care about your money, she finally said. I need you to know that. I do know that. You're the first person in years who's wanted nothing from me except my time and my honesty, which makes it even worse that I wasn't completely honest with you. Deanna turned to face him. If we're going to make this work, no more secrets, no more omissions. I need to know all of you, not just the parts you think I'll accept. Deal. Ethan's relief was visible. Ask me anything. How rich are we talking? The company's valued at about $3 billion. My personal net worth is complicated because most of it's tied up in the business, but roughly half of that. Deanna felt dizzy. $1.5 billion, give or take a few $100 million. Oh my God, you're making a joke about hundreds of millions of dollars. Ethan laughed, but it was nervous. Bad joke, sorry. Deanna shook her head, trying to process. What else? What else haven't you told me? I have 2 houses besides this apartment, one in California and one in Colorado. I have a board of directors that I meet with monthly. I occasionally have to travel for business, sometimes internationally. There are charity galas and industry events that I'm expected to attend. He paused. And at some point, probably soon, the media is going to figure out that I'm seeing someone. They'll want to know everything about you. That made Deanna's stomach drop. I didn't sign up for that, I know. And if it's too much, if any of this is too much, I'll understand. Ethan's voice was careful, but she could hear the fear underneath. But I really hope it's not too much, because I'm falling in love with you, Deanna. And I don't want to lose you over this. Deanna's breath caught. You're falling in love with me. I'm pretty much already there, honestly. Have been for weeks. Ethan reached up and cupped her face gently. You're the strongest, most genuine person I've ever met. You call me on my nonsense. You don't let me hide behind money or status. You make me laugh. You make me want to be better. So yes, I'm in love with you, completely. Deanna felt tears spilling over. This is really unfair. I was trying to be mad at you. You can still be mad at me. The feelings can coexist. I can't be mad at you when you're saying things like that. Deanna closed her eyes, feeling his thumbs brush away her tears. I'm falling in love with you too, even though you're apparently a secret billionaire with houses I don't know about. Just 2 houses, and now you know about them. Deanna opened her eyes and found Ethan watching her with such open emotion that her heart ached. No more secrets. No more secrets. I promise. She kissed him then, pouring 3 months of feeling and fear and hope into it. Ethan pulled her close, and Deanna let herself be held, let herself feel safe and vulnerable at the same time. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. This is going to be complicated, she whispered. I know. The media thing sounds awful. It kind of is. And I'm still going to insist on paying for my own things. Ethan smiled against her hair. I wouldn't expect anything less. They spent the rest of the night talking, really talking. Ethan told her about the pressure of the business, the constant demands, the way every decision affected thousands of employees and their families. Deanna told him about her own pressures, the life and death decisions at the hospital, the emotional toll of losing patients, the satisfaction of saving them. We're both carrying a lot, Ethan said as they lay tangled together on his couch, the city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. At least we can carry it together now, Deanna replied. True to Ethan's warning, the media attention started about 2 weeks later. Deanna was at work when Sarah rushed up to her with a phone in hand. Di, you need to see this. It was a tabloid website, and the headline made Deanna's blood run cold. Billionaire bachelor Ethan Crawford spotted with mystery woman. Below were photos of them leaving a restaurant, holding hands. Deanna's face was clearly visible. They're calling you mystery woman like you're a superhero, Sarah said, trying to lighten the mood. That's kind of cool. That's invasive. Deanna felt her hands shaking. They took pictures of us without us knowing. The article was full of speculation. Who was she? How did they meet? Was it serious? One particularly nasty section questioned whether Deanna was a gold digger, citing her modest nursing salary and Ethan's billions. Deanna wanted to throw the phone across the room. Ethan called her during her lunch break, his voice tight with anger. I'm so sorry. I'm having my legal team see what they can do about the photos. Can they do anything? Probably not. We were in public, but we can at least push back on the gold digger narrative. Don't. Deanna surprised herself with how firm her voice was. Don't engage with them at all. I don't need you defending me. People who matter know the truth. You're sure? I'm sure. Though I should probably warn Marcus before he sees it online. She called her brother immediately after. Marcus was predictably outraged, both at the invasion of privacy and at the fact that Diana's boyfriend was apparently one of the richest people in the country. You buried the lead a little bit, Di. Oh, he works in manufacturing. Yeah, because he owns the whole company. I didn't know at first. And then when I found out, it didn't seem important. It's kind of important. Why? He's still the same person. The money doesn't change who he is. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Does he treat you well? He treats me like I hung the moon. Then I guess the rest doesn't matter. But I'm still mad you didn't tell me. The media attention was intense for about a week, then faded as some celebrity scandal took over the news cycle. Deanna refused to read any of it, and Ethan respected her wishes not to issue statements or fight back. They kept their heads down and focused on each other. 2 months later, Ethan invited Deanna to a charity gala. It's for children's hospitals, he said. I'm on the board, so I kind of have to be there, but I'd really like you to come with me, as my official date. Deanna hesitated. That's going to make things public, really public. I know, but I want people to know you're in my life. I want to stop hiding us. Ethan took her hands. Only if you're comfortable, though. No pressure. Deanna thought about it. The media attention had been unpleasant but manageable. She didn't like the scrutiny, but she loved Ethan. And she was tired of feeling like they had to sneak around. Okay, but I'm buying my own dress. Deanna. I mean it. This is non-negotiable. Ethan sighed dramatically. Fine. But I'm sending you the dress code requirements because these things are very specific. Diana went shopping with Sarah, who was having far too much fun with the whole thing. You're literally going to a ball with a billionaire. This is a fairy tale. It's a charity gala, not a ball. Same thing. Sarah held up a stunning midnight blue gown. Try this one. The dress fit perfectly, elegant and sophisticated without being overly flashy. Deanna looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked like she belonged in Ethan's world, which was both thrilling and terrifying. The night of the gala, Ethan picked her up in an actual limousine. Deanna stared at it from her apartment window and had a brief moment of panic. This was real. She was really doing this. But when Ethan got out of the car and looked up at her building, when his face broke into a smile as she emerged, all the panic melted away. He was still just Ethan, the man who had stopped on a rainy highway. The man who made her laugh and challenged her and loved her exactly as she was. You're stunning, he said, offering his arm. You're not so bad yourself. Ethan wore a tuxedo like he was born in one, all clean lines and quiet confidence. The gala was held at a massive hotel ballroom that had been transformed into something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers, white flowers everywhere, tables draped in silk. Deanna felt profoundly out of her depth until Ethan leaned down and whispered, "See that guy over there? Spilled red wine on his shirt before we even left the house. He's wearing his backup tux." Deanna bit back a laugh. "How do you know that?" "Because he texted me about it in a panic." "That's Richard Chen, one of my board members. Nice guy, total disaster with beverages." Throughout the night, Ethan kept up a running commentary that made the whole thing feel less intimidating. He introduced her to people with genuine warmth, never as my girlfriend the nurse, but just as Deanna, someone important to him. When people asked how they met, Ethan told the truth with a smile. "Her car broke down. I offered her a ride. Best car trouble either of us ever had." During dinner, a woman across the table asked Deanna what she did. Before Deanna could answer, Ethan jumped in. "Diana's a trauma nurse at County General. She saves lives on a daily basis. It's incredible." The pride in his voice made Deanna's chest tight. She had dated men who seemed almost embarrassed by her career, who changed the subject when people asked about her work. But Ethan talked about it like she was a superhero. Later, when they were dancing, Deanna rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being proud of me. For making me feel like I belong here." Ethan pulled back enough to look at her. "You do belong here. These people might have money, but you have something more important. You have purpose. You make a real difference in the world." He kissed her softly. "I'm the lucky one, Deanna. Don't ever forget that." The gala raised over $2 million for children's hospitals. The next day, photos of Deanna and Ethan dancing appeared in several society pages. But the articles were kinder this time, noting their obvious affection and Deanna's impressive career. One even included a quote from a hospital administrator praising Deanna's dedication and skill. "Well, you're officially no longer Mystery Woman," Sarah said, showing Deanna her phone. "Now you're Diana Kellerman, talented trauma nurse and girlfriend of Ethan Crawford." "That's weird." "All of that is weird. Welcome to your new normal." But Deanna's normal didn't change as much as she had feared. She still worked her shifts, still grabbed coffee with Sarah, still had movie nights with Marcus. The only difference was that now she had Ethan, solid and steady and completely in love with her, 6 months after the gala, Ethan asked Deanna to move in with him. They were at her apartment, which had started to feel cramped now that Ethan spent most of his free time there. "I know it's a big step," he said, "and I know you value your independence, but I love you and I want to come home to you every night. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want this to be our life, not just visits between your place and mine." Deanna had been thinking the same thing but had been afraid to bring it up. "I'd be giving up my apartment, my space. You'd have space at my place, an entire room just for you if you want it. I'll literally have walls knocked down if that's what you need." Ethan was sitting on her lumpy couch, looking endearingly nervous. "But I hope you'll want to share space with me, share everything with me. I do want that." Deanna sat down next to him. "I'm scared, though, of losing myself in us, of becoming dependent. You could never lose yourself. You're too strong, too sure of who you are." Ethan took her hand. "And dependency isn't the same as partnership. I don't want you to need me. I just want you to want me the way I want you." Deanna kissed him, soft and sweet. "Then yes, let's do this." Moving in together was an adjustment. Deanna had to get used to the sheer size of Ethan's apartment, the way it never felt fully lived in, because he was always at the office. She claimed the second bedroom as her own space, filling it with books and photos and her collection of houseplants that somehow stayed alive despite her chaotic schedule. Ethan made space for her everywhere. Her toiletries in the bathroom, her favorite snacks in the kitchen. Her name added to the lease and the building's security system. He even got rid of his expensive minimalist couch and let Deanna pick out something more comfortable. "This is your home too," he insisted. "I want it to feel like ours." They fell into rhythms. Deanna worked her rotating shifts while Ethan kept more regular hours at the office, though he often brought work home. They cooked together when they could, ordered takeout when they couldn't. They learned each other's quirks and habits. Ethan discovered that Deanna was completely useless before her first cup of coffee. Deanna learned that Ethan muttered to himself when he was working through a problem. They fought sometimes, usually about Ethan's tendency to solve problems with money. When Deanna's car finally died completely, Ethan wanted to buy her a new one. Deanna refused and bought a used Honda with her own savings. "You're being stubborn," Ethan said, frustrated. "You're being controlling," Deanna shot back. They had stared at each other, both angry, until Deanna had deflated. "I'm sorry, that's not fair. You're not being controlling, you're being generous. And you're not being stubborn, you're being independent." Ethan had pulled her into a hug. "We need to find a middle ground here." They did find it, eventually. Deanna let Ethan help with things that made sense, like when her student loans felt overwhelming and he offered to pay them off. She had almost refused on principle, until he pointed out that the interest was just making banks richer, and wouldn't she rather use that money for something meaningful in turn? Ethan learned to ask before jumping in to fix things. He stopped assuming Deanna needed rescuing and started simply offering support. A year and a half into living together, Ethan came home early from work looking nervous. Deanna was in the kitchen, attempting to make lasagna from scratch, and she looked up in surprise. "You're home early." "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Great, actually." Ethan set down his briefcase and walked over to her. "I need to talk to you about something." Diana's heart jumped. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. At least I hope it's not." Ethan took her hand and Deanna noticed his palm was sweaty. He was really nervous. "Ethan, you're kind of freaking me out." He took a deep breath, then got down on one knee. Diana's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. Deanna Kellerman, you are the strongest, smartest, most incredible person I have ever met. You challenge me. You ground me. You make me want to be better every single day." Ethan pulled out a ring box and opened it, revealing a stunning diamond that somehow managed to be both elegant and understated. "You don't need me, and I love that about you, but I need you. I want to spend the rest of my life being your partner, your supporter, your biggest fan. Will you marry me?" Deanna was crying, tears streaming down her face. "You're going to make me ruin my lasagna. Is that a yes?" "Yes. God, yes. Of course, yes." Deanna pulled Ethan to his feet and kissed him, tasting salt from her own tears. "I love you so much." Ethan slipped the ring on her finger and they stood in the kitchen holding each other, the lasagna forgotten. Deanna looked down at the ring, watching it catch the light. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I had it custom made. I wanted something that felt like you, strong and unique and perfect." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at a venue overlooking the mountains. Deanna wore a simple white dress that she had chosen herself, and Ethan cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. Marcus was there, beaming with pride. Sarah was Deanna's maid of honor. Ethan's board members and closest friends filled the other seats, along with Deanna's co-workers from the hospital and a handful of family members. It was small and intimate, and everything Deanna had wanted. The vows they wrote themselves were honest and heartfelt. Ethan promised to love Diana's independence even when it frustrated him. Deanna promised to let Ethan help her, even when her pride made her want to refuse. "I used to think needing someone made you weak," Deanna said, her voice carrying across the gathered guests. "But you taught me that real strength is knowing when to let people in. You gave me a ride home on a rainy night, and somehow you ended up being my home. I love you, Ethan. I'll love you for the rest of my life." There wasn't a dry eye in the house. The reception was held at the same venue, with dinner and dancing under string lights as the sun set over the mountains. Deanna danced with Marcus, who told her their mother would have been proud. She danced with Richard Chen, who didn't spill anything on anyone's clothes. And she danced with Ethan, her husband, as their friends and family celebrated around them. "Happy," Ethan murmured in her ear, "incredibly." Deanna rested her head on his shoulder. "Though I still can't believe I married a billionaire." "You married Ethan Crawford." "The billionaire thing is just a weird footnote." Deanna laughed. "A weird footnote that comes with houses in California and Colorado, which are now your houses too, our houses. That's still so strange to say." They swayed together as the song changed, and Deanna thought about the journey that had brought them here. A broken-down car, a rainy highway, a man who had stopped to help when he didn't have to. She had been so determined not to need anyone, to prove she could handle everything alone. But Ethan had shown her that accepting love and offering it in return didn't make her weak. It made her whole. 2 years into their marriage, Deanna came home from a particularly brutal shift to find Ethan in the kitchen making dinner. He had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, and he looked up with a smile when she walked in. Rough day. 3 car accident victims, 2 teenagers who overdosed, and a guy who tried to rob a convenience store and shot himself in the foot. Deanna kicked off her shoes and went to wash her hands. "I'm exhausted." "Go sit down. Dinner's almost ready." Deanna wanted to argue, to insist she could help, but her body was screaming at her to rest. So she sat down at the kitchen island and watched Ethan move around their kitchen with easy confidence. "I have something to tell you," she said. Ethan looked up, instantly alert. "Everything okay? Everything's perfect, actually." Deanna took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." Ethan dropped the spoon he was holding. It clattered against the stove, sending red sauce splattering. He didn't seem to notice. "You're pregnant. We're going to have a baby. We're going to have a baby." Deanna felt tears welling up. "I know we talked about waiting another year, but apparently the universe had other plans." Ethan was around the island in seconds, pulling Deanna into his arms. "I don't care about plans. This is amazing. You're amazing." He pulled back, hands on her shoulders. "How are you feeling? When did you find out? Do you need anything?" "I feel okay, mostly just tired. I found out yesterday, but I wanted to tell you in person. And what I need is for you to not freak out and treat me like I'm made of glass." "I'm not freaking out." Ethan was definitely freaking out. "I'm just processing. We're having a baby, an actual baby." Deanna laughed, feeling joy bubble up inside her. "An actual baby? Are you okay with this?" "Am I okay?" "Deanna, I'm thrilled. Terrified, but thrilled." Ethan kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "We're going to be parents." The pregnancy was relatively smooth, though Deanna hated being benched from some of her more physically demanding duties at work. Ethan was predictably overprotective, wanting to wrap Deanna in bubble wrap and keep her on bed rest for 9 months. Deanna had to remind him repeatedly that she was pregnant, not dying. "I can still do things," she insisted when he tried to carry all the groceries himself. "I'm growing a human, not recovering from surgery." "I know, I just worry." "You can worry, just don't smother." They found out they were having a girl, and Ethan cried in the ultrasound room. Deanna was convinced he would be wrapped around their daughter's finger from day one. The nursery became a joint project. Deanna wanted it to be cheerful but not overwhelmingly pink. Ethan wanted to buy every baby item ever invented. They compromised on a yellow and white color scheme with carefully selected furniture and toys. "She's going to be so spoiled," Deanna said, watching Ethan assemble a crib that definitely cost more than her first car. "She's going to be loved," Ethan corrected. "There's a difference." Emma Kellerman Crawford was born on a sunny Tuesday morning in May, weighing 7 pounds and 3 ounces. Diana's labor was long and difficult, but when the nurse finally placed Emma in her arms, everything else faded away. She had dark hair like Ethan and Diana's nose and the tiniest, most perfect fingers Deanna had ever seen. Ethan stood beside the hospital bed, staring at his wife and daughter with such overwhelming love that he couldn't speak. When he finally found his voice, all he could say was, "She's perfect." "She really is." Marcus visited that afternoon, bringing flowers and congratulations. He held Emma with surprising confidence for a guy who had never been around babies much, and Deanna watched her brother fall in love with his niece in real time. "She's going to be trouble," Marcus predicted. "Look at her. She already knows she's got us all wrapped around her finger." "Takes after her mother," Ethan said, earning a tired laugh from Deanna. The first few months were an exhausting blur of feedings and diaper changes and very little sleep. Deanna had thought her nursing shifts had prepared her for exhaustion, but nothing compared to the bone-deep fatigue of new parenthood. Ethan took paternity leave and threw himself into helping, learning to swaddle and burp and soothe Emma's cries. They figured it out together, stumbling through the challenges and celebrating the tiny victories. Emma's first smile, her first laugh, the first night she slept for 4 hours straight. On their 3rd wedding anniversary, Deanna and Ethan sat in the nursery watching Emma sleep in her crib. They were both exhausted, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and Deanna couldn't remember the last time she had brushed her hair. But Ethan looked at her like she was the most beautiful thing in the world. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For letting me love you. For building this life with me, for Emma." Ethan took her hand. "For saying yes to that ride home 3.5 years ago." Deanna leaned her head on his shoulder. "I almost didn't, you know. I was so determined to handle everything myself. I know, but you let me in anyway. Best decision I ever made." Deanna watched Emma's little chest rise and fall, marveling at this tiny perfect person they had created. "You know what's funny? I spent so long trying to prove I didn't need anyone, but now I can't imagine my life without you. "You still don't need me," Ethan said. "You're still the strongest person I know. You just chose to share your life with me. There's a difference." "There is." Deanna turned and kissed him softly. "I love you, Ethan. Thank you for being my hero even when I insisted I didn't need one. Thank you for being mine." They sat together in the quiet nursery, Emma sleeping peacefully in her crib, and Deanna thought about everything that had led to this moment. A rainy highway, a dead car battery, a man who had stopped when he didn't have to. She had told him she didn't need a hero, and she had meant it. But sometimes the universe gave you what you needed anyway, wrapping it up in unexpected packages and leaving it on the side of the road. She didn't need Ethan to save her or complete her or make her whole. She had always been whole on her own. But loving him, being loved by him, building this life together had added something she hadn't known was missing. Not completion, but expansion. Not dependence, but partnership. Emma stirred in her sleep, making a soft cooing sound. Ethan stood and checked on her, adjusting her blanket with gentle hands. Deanna watched him, her husband and the father of her child, and felt her heart swell with love so overwhelming she could barely breathe. This was her life now. Not the one she had planned or expected, but something better. Something real and messy and perfect in its imperfection. The rain had stopped falling years ago, but Deanna could still remember standing on that dark highway, looking at a stranger through her car window and making a choice. She could accept help, or she could be alone. She had chosen help, and everything had changed. Emma opened her eyes, blinking up at her parents with that unfocused baby gaze. Ethan picked her up, cradling her against his chest, and Diana stood to join them. They stood together, the three of them, a family built on rainy nights and second chances, and learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone in. Diana Kellerman had never needed a hero, but she had found one anyway, and in finding him, she had discovered that being strong enough to accept love was its own kind of heroism. The kind that lasted, the kind that built families and futures and forever. Outside their apartment windows, the city sparkled with lights. Cars rushed past on the street below, each containing their own stories and struggles and moments of choice. Somewhere out there, someone's car was probably breaking down. Someone was probably standing in the rain, deciding whether to trust a stranger. Deanna hoped they would say yes. She hoped they would be brave enough to let someone help them. Because sometimes the universe sent you exactly what you needed, wrapped up in unexpected packages. Sometimes it sent you a billionaire in a rainstorm. Sometimes it sent you home. And sometimes, if you were really lucky, it sent you love in the form of a man who stopped his car on a dark highway and asked if you needed help, even when you insisted you were fine. A man who saw your strength and loved you for it. A man who became your partner, your husband, your forever. Deanna looked at Ethan holding their daughter and smiled. She had told him she didn't need a hero, and she had been right. But she had gotten one anyway, and she had never been more grateful to be wrong.